Okay, so today we're diving into a really interesting story. It's about a brand new world-class wildlife facility in India. It gets a total clean bill of health from the country's own Supreme Court, but then, almost immediately, a global watchdog raises some serious flags about the very same project. It's a classic case of national pride versus international scrutiny, and believe it or not, it all boils down to a single word on a piece of paper. Let's get into it. So, right off the bat, here's the central puzzle we're looking at. How can a massive, celebrated project like Reliance's Vantara facility in Gujarat get a green light from a top-level investigation, appointed by the Supreme Court, and then have a major international body raise some pretty serious questions? That's the riddle we're going to try and solve today. All right, to get to the bottom of this, we really have to look at two very different conflicting reports. They paint completely different pictures of what's going on. It's a real tale of two reports. And this really gets to the heart of it. On one side, you have the Supreme Court's Special Investigation Team, the SIT, which basically gave the Vantara project a glowing review. They said its activities were above board and totally justified. But then, on the other side, you've got the CITES committee, and we'll talk about who they are in just a sec, and they're raising concerns about permits and much bigger systemic questions. Now, here's a really crucial piece of the puzzle: transparency, or maybe the lack of it. You see, the Supreme Court only released a summary of the SIT's findings. The full, detailed report, the one with all the evidence and reasoning, that was never actually made public. And that detail is going to become super important as we go on. And it's really important to be clear about this. CITES wasn't actually knocking the Vantara facility itself. In fact, they praised it. They said, hey, great infrastructure, amazing animal care. Their problem wasn't with the place, but with the paperwork, the permits that allowed the animals to get there in the first place. And that points to a much bigger issue with India's whole wildlife management system. And that brings us right to the core of the issue, what I'm calling the permit puzzle. This is where things get really, really interesting. So who is this CITES that's making all the noise? Well, it stands for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Basically, it is the single most important international agreement that governs how animals move across borders. Its main job is to stop illegal animal trafficking and make sure legal trade doesn't wipe out a species. So yeah, when they speak, their opinion carries a ton of weight. So, with an organization this important digging into the details, what did they find? What was the specific problem with these permits that got them so worried? And boom, here it is. This is the smoking gun. When the CITES committee looked at the documents, they found a huge mismatch. For example, a country like the Czech Republic recorded the transfer of animals as a commercial sale. But on the other side, in India, Vantara's paperwork said no, it wasn't a sale. They only paid for ancillary costs, things like transport and insurance. Now, you might be thinking, sale, costs. Come on, is this just semantics? Are we just splitting hairs here? But let me tell you, in the world of international wildlife law, that one-word difference, it changes everything. Okay, here's why it's so critical. First, Indian law is very clear. Its zoos are not allowed to buy animals commercially, period. Second, CITES is actually fine with commercial sales, but they insist that they are recorded accurately and honestly. So when the paperwork doesn't match up, it creates these big gaps in traceability. And those gaps, that's exactly where illegal trafficking networks love to operate. So let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't just about one facility or a handful of permits. This is about why meticulous, transparent paperwork is literally the bedrock of global conservation. This quote from the editorial we're looking at just nails it. When the process isn't fully transparent, when it's translucent, as they say, it just erodes trust. And for a country like India, which is home to some of the world's most critical ecosystems, that global trust is an absolutely priceless asset. And you have to remember CITES's main goal. They have one number one mission above everything else: to stop the illegal trafficking of animals. And the way they do that is by building a system where every single animal's journey is documented, transparent, and can be traced from start to finish. Any weakness in that paper trail is a huge red flag. So because of these discrepancies, the CITES committee did something pretty major. It formally recommended that India's wildlife authorities hit the pause button on issuing these kinds of import permits for endangered animals until these systemic problems are fixed. That is a very serious signal in the world of conservation and diplomacy.
So, what does this all mean for India's standing in the world? Well, the implications are pretty significant. It puts a reputation that was built very carefully over many years at serious risk.
I mean, think about what's at stake here. India has worked for decades to be seen as a global leader in conservation. This kind of controversy threatens that credibility. It makes people question how robust its domestic systems really are. And at the end of the day, it could undermine the global trust that's needed to protect the incredible biodiversity inside its borders.
So, this isn't a dead end. The CITES report and all the analysis around it don't just point out problems. They actually suggest a path forward, a way to rebuild that trust and make the whole system stronger. The solution really seems to rest on three pillars. First, proactive engagement. Instead of waiting for problems to be found, India's authorities could take the lead in sorting out paperwork issues with other countries. Second, accurate recording. This just means making sure a sale is called a sale everywhere, leaving zero room for confusion. And finally, and this is the big one, full transparency, releasing the full reports, making the data public. That's how you build confidence and prove there's nothing to hide.
And so we're left with this final thought. This was never just about one facility or a few pieces of paper. It's about whether a country is willing to embrace the kind of deep, rigorous transparency that it takes to be a true leader in global conservation. The world is watching, and for a nation with so much incredible natural heritage, it's a reputation it really can't afford to lose.